Welcome to Astrology Day, the new equinox, March equinox of 2024. And here we are celebrating astrology with my colleagues and fellow star beings. And thank you all for joining us from all over the world. We are keeping the torch burning for a long tradition of seekers and magi who have interpreted stellar cycles for humanity. So I want to share the chart of the equinox. Here we are on this new cycle. This is the chart that can often be used as a predictive tool for the whole year. So when we see the moon trine the sun and Pluto involved, and when we see the Jupiter-Uranus together in Taurus, this is something that can impact not only us astrologers, but the whole world, as well as the Mercury. Notice the Mercury on the North Node conjunct Chiron. So this is a nice meme that I saw today online, and I thought I would add it. In the universe, in the galaxy, in a solar system, planet, continent, country, state, city, neighborhood, on the street, in a house, in a room, there's a person thinking, I love astrology. Imagine that, all of us here. So I'm going to be selecting the gifts based on your registration numbers. And what we're going to do is I'm going to select a name. And this person may not be live. So we will give the person 3 days to claim their gift. And if we don't hear from them, then a second runner-up is going to be selected. I'm going to pick 2 per gift. And so if the first one doesn't show up, then the second one will be contacted. So let's start with Sul, who is coming from Norway, and she's going to speak about heliocentricity.
Thank you very much, Maurice, and happy Astrology Day to everyone. I've been thinking a lot about astrology lately because it is a pretty weird job to have, especially in a place and time in our history where we are more and more secular and more materialistically oriented. I wouldn't claim that we who are present today necessarily are so, but as we see, the general theme on Earth today is moving away from belief, and we are seeing some sort of spiritual kind of longing that is definitely met by astrology, which is a non-secular thing, and that's why I love it so much. So well, it's a non-religious thing, a non-dogmatic thing. So my name is Sul. I'm from Norway, and I've been studying with Maurice. I came to his forum in 2002, I think, and that's also where I met the astrologer that I would love to honor today, which has also been on my mind lately quite a lot. Her name was Dawn Bodrogi, and she kind of became my big sister. She showed me the importance of meeting people of like mind. But Dawn died a couple of years ago, and she left a huge legacy in terms of her work with the asteroids, and particularly Ceres, which is the planet that I would love to honor today. It is a dwarf planet after all, and I would love to see Ceres move into a more, like we start using her more in the astrology, because she offers valuable insights into our connection with nature, with the cycles of life, with being young, getting older, and then eventually moving into the latter parts of our life, the latter stages of our life. So she's very important. Dawn Bedrogi was supposed, she was supposed to publish her book before she died, actually. And it also reminds me that it is very important that for the aspiring astrologer and for those who publish your work, your research, your ideas and inspiration, that it's very important to take care of it and make sure that it gets, you know, the audience that it deserves. Dawn had a lot to share. She had a very, very good website with plenty of articles. And I remember I took my progression, my secondary progression classes with her. So I would love to honor a voice that is not always well known in the world of astrology. And although she's not around us anymore, she keeps inspiring me every day. You know, sometimes I find her old articles and I read about them, and they're very educational, especially on the works of the asteroids. My subject today, my theme today, is something that I've been exploring for years, being very well, you know, versed in meditation and having had a lot of experiences with being connected to everything. And also living on a planet that doesn't necessarily see the connections between the planets and our personality. It is, of course, of a little bit of a scientific curiosity inside of me that would love to kind of prove why is it that astrology works. And I believe that with Pluto in Aquarius, we will go through a time where quantum mechanics will evolve so quickly that we will understand what these concepts of entanglement, of string theory, and all these different things that they are exploring on a theoretical level actually means in a mundane way. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. We live inside a heliosphere. Ska vi se if I can find this. Oh, ska vi se if that person's thing can get off. There we go. We live inside the heliosphere. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but the heliosphere looks a bit like this. Actually, we are moving around in a ridiculous speed across the galaxy. We live in the Milky Way, and we live inside this, I want to call it a bubble, inside this aura. It's this aura where our entire solar system plus the distance that is 3 times further away than Pluto. This is where our heliosphere ends, where you have the field that's called the termination shock. You can see it on the graph here. And inside of there, this is where we travel through space at 450,000 miles per hour. So it's pretty quick. And as we orbit around our sun, we are basically orbiting around as one entity. We are a unit. This is our neighborhood. The definition of the heliosphere is that the sun sends out a constant flow of solar material, the solar winds, which create a bubble around the planets called the heliosphere. The heliosphere acts as a shield that protects the planets from interstellar radiation. And the microcosmos and the macrocosmos, which is one of the Hermetic laws that kind of is the existential foundation of astrology, we say as above, so below, also goes to show that this is like exactly how our own bodies and energy system works. And I believe that there is a connection between our energy centers and the planets, and that's how we are entangled into our own solar system, with our sun being the solar logos, the creative principle, the evolutionary intention of us who live inside the solar system. And as we move so quickly, we evolve constantly. There is no ending to evolution. And this is one of the fundamental principles of evolutionary astrology, that evolution, change, growth it's unlimited. We are here to evolve, if anything. And I've often wondered, you know, how we could be separate from the planets, as we are basically living inside of the one body called the heliosphere. We are basically part of that, as all sentient beings would be. Not everyone are as receptive to the solar, the cosmic rays, you might call it the planetary rays. It depends on the vehicle. That will say a stone, even though a stone also evolves. We've seen that with crystals, for instance. A human being is capable of perceiving and receiving on a more advanced level what it means to be alive. We have a self-consciousness, for instance, and that's part of evolution. Where we'll go to next, we don't know, but we are part of this evolutionary dance around our sun, but also around our galaxy and galaxies around other galaxies. Hylozoism is the view that the universe itself is a living organism, and that particular graphic is the sun moving. Well, in this particular graphic, it shows that it's moving forward, and everything else is spiraling around. So we're out there traveling as one living organism. So we live as an expression of our planetary logos, as like this evolutionary intention that we try to find in our birth charts is on a bigger level also seen as the evolution of our own sun and our own existence as species or as individuals, as expressions of life. The one and the many, there is this understanding that as above, so below, that we have the potential to achieve higher states of consciousness so that we eventually, maybe, you know, evolve into another expression of life. Right now we're here. And theoretical physics suggests that we live in multiple dimensions. We might not be able to perceive them because we are very much entangled. We are very much occupied by the three dimensions: length, breadth, and height, and of course time, which is the fourth dimension. But string theory suggests that there are no less than, well, they say somewhere between 10 and 26 dimensions. So that's a lot of dimensions we haven't discovered yet. And I remember my father said when he was, this summer actually, he was very philosophical this summer, and he said to me, I believe the fifth dimension is entanglement. Now, entanglement is a concept that comes from quantum physics, and it suggests that there is a dimension beyond space where everything happens simultaneously. It does not only suggest it, they have also proven that that is what happens. Now, we cannot quite understand how that works if we only think in 4 dimensions, because what happens if you, entanglement is basically if you stimulate one proton, or you signal one neutron, proton, whatever, another one will respond simultaneously, even though they are not in the same location. They are separated. There's like this telepathy between these two small protons, these two particles. They are telepathically connected. So even if you just speak to one of them, the other one will answer as well. And that entanglement, I mean, the fifth dimension and all these yet to be discovered or expressed dimensions might also happen to explain a little bit why it is astrology works, actually. Because if there's no distance and no separation, well, then Pluto isn't so far away after all. So everything lives within multiple dimensions. But what I've come to discover through transit work, and especially working with clients in depth, is that when we enter into the transits of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in particular, and we move beyond Chronos, Saturn, which is chronological time, our perception of time shifts. And at that time, the past, this moment, and the future are all colliding, and it all acts as one. And this is why we can have an understanding what it means to have a past life, because time does not exist. and we can have access to that information as if it was happening right now. And that's part of the philosophical foundation. I think that it's important for us. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I think it's very important if we want to study astrology and we want to study and be able to kind of find peace with how that the fact that right now, as of this moment, we cannot find any causal factor to as if to why it works, but at least with that kind of esoteric philosophical search and approach, and what is happening in theoretical physics and in quantum mechanics right now, I believe that it won't be long before we understand that we are living in inside an entity, a unity, a body, and we are part of that body's evolution. We are expressing it as an expression of life. So yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to share with you guys today. I don't know how much time I have, but yeah, that's my hope, that people will find a little bit of inspiration in that and start thinking about life as an interconnected, multidimensional experience instead of thinking of it in terms of how people mostly think today.
And you have to add, so that you're an Aquarian.
Oh yeah, I am an Aquarius.
Because this talk is very Aquarian in
It's very Aquarian, okay.
bringing the big picture perspective, the science into the astrology. And the fact that even though current science doesn't have the tools to really explain why astrology
Not yet.
works, there is an explanation. And like you say, perhaps it is within that Neptunian realm of timelessness.
And if I may add something to that, I think in terms of how you see I'm not projecting onto humanity when I say that there's a lot of pointless nihilism out there. There's a lot of nihilism out there, and I think that's why we have such a draw to magic and to astrology and all these things. We can absolutely extract religion and dogmatism from our traditions if that's what we think we have to do in order to become more reasonable. But I don't think we can eliminate spirituality, because that's part of who we are. We are spiritual, all of us. And atheism wants us to believe that we are nothing, like we are basically just specks of randomness that are here. And that I think that underestimates people. And I don't think the argument that astrology is a narcissistic exercise actually is true, because it makes us better human beings to understand our own birth chart, and we become better human beings for other humans. So I can't see the problem there, to be quite honest. But yeah, so I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, thank you. Now choose a number between 1 and 325.
1 and 325. 82.
82 is going to be Edyta Moskwa.
Oh.
From Poland, I believe. So you are the recipient of Sul's series workshop. And if Edyta doesn't respond, pick another number.
97.
97, Gail Rudd, who is the runner-up for your prize. Thank you so much, Sul.
You're welcome.
And for your generosity.
Oh, no, that was my pleasure.
And we're now transitioning to possibly Judy, because Petra was supposed to be second, but she had her own outage issues. And so I wonder if Judy's ready to go.
Yeah, I am.
Beautiful. So
Okay.
Judy joins us from Massachusetts and is a psychiatrist who released a book. I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit about your book.
Yes, I will. I will.
So blessings. We look forward to your presentation. I just want to share that it's a privilege to see more and more psychologists, psychiatrists being interested in astrology, because my sense, and I believe many people share this, that astrology is not just going to be a profession for the future, but it's going to be integrated in other professions, whether it is finances, whether it's health, mental, physical health, whether it's art. So here we have a really embodiment of astrology permeating the different aspects of our lives. So thank you, Judy.
Thank you. And can you see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I am thrilled to participate in this gathering to honor astrology. Thank you, Maurice, for creating this special opportunity. I'm a holistic psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst, as well as an evolutionary astrologer, trained both by Maurice and Stephen Forrest, with a practice of holistic psychiatry and astrology in the Boston area. I recently wrote a book entitled Sacred Psychiatry, Bridging the Personal and Transpersonal to Transform Health and Consciousness, in which CHIRON figures prominently. I am choosing to honor CHIRON today, as both he and I are holistic healers and astrologers. The book describes the current astrological context and the need for practices which create resilience during these times of transformation on the planet. The QR codes on the slide refer to the website of my practice and the author's page. I'm going to tell you today about a patient who I've only seen a few times, a man who I will call Francois, who recently contacted me after discovering my book on Amazon, wishing to be in psychotherapy with me. His natal chart is like an X-ray, insofar as it allows us to so clearly and dramatically view the bones and structures of his psychospiritual condition. Francois is a brilliant 60-year-old medical doctor with a successful and innovative practice. He has always been extremely high-achieving and extraordinarily disciplined. He strictly adheres to a very healthful but restrictive diet that the average person would find impossible to sustain, and engages consistently in a rigorous exercise program. He has informed himself about cutting-edge thinking regarding diet and lifestyle practices and enjoys excellent physical health, which he nevertheless aspires to further improve. He has been married and divorced twice and has 3 children. He was repeatedly and compulsively unfaithful to his wives and described how what had always mattered to him in the past had been the thrill of conquest. Once he had succeeded in winning the admiration of a succession of women, he would quickly lose interest in them. Both his second wife, as well as a famous Buddhist meditation teacher, advised him that he really needed to be in psychotherapy to examine his relational life. He recognized the truth in this and has expressed to me a feeling of remorse about hurting numerous women who have loved him. Recently, he has become closer to his children, and he is very generous, providing for all of them financially, as well as for ex-wives and multiple members of his family of origin. Francois has approached his psychotherapeutic work with me with the same zeal and single-mindedness that he brings to his diet and exercise regime. In our second meeting, he expressed an interest in looking at his astrology chart together and asked me to recommend beginner astrology books. He has been eager to learn about the ways in which, over the course of his life, he has expressed the astrological archetypes in his birth chart. He described his mother as a judgmental woman who took care of his physical needs and had high expectations of him to achieve, but who was lacking in emotional attunement. His father suffered from recurrent depression and suicidality. At the age of 4, he saw his father with another woman, and from that point on recalls that he was aware of his father's chronic infidelities and the pain and suffering this caused his mother. Francois reported that he responded by cutting off all feelings for his father and told himself that he had no need of him. He has reflected that in terms of his own infidelities, that little by little over time, he has become his father. The first thing I noticed when I looked at his chart is how powerfully the fire element is represented, with an Aries sun conjunct the ascendant and Jupiter in Aries. Those Aries placements are ruled by Mars and Leo in the 5th house, and his Sagittarius moon in the 8th is ruled by Jupiter in Aries. These Martian, Jupiterian, and solar energies are very evident in his character. He is a passionate, idealistic, and charismatic man with deep convictions. In his youth, he was politically involved and a popular activist leader on behalf of the poor. Today, his patients adore him and are willing to follow his strenuous protocols and difficult-to-implement prescriptions. He commented that he could not in good conscience make recommendations to his patients about diet and exercise that he was not willing or able to implement himself. He remarked that he would welcome being diagnosed with cancer because he has witnessed the personal growth it has catalyzed in many of his patients. He characterized cancer as a gift. I appreciate that illness can be a profound initiatory experience and greatly accelerate psychospiritual development, but in 35 years of practice, I have never heard anyone say that they would welcome getting a cancer diagnosis. I think it speaks to a kind of denial of average expectable human feeling. When we looked at his chart together, I commented that sometimes those with the Sagittarius moon are prone to black and white thinking, and he responded that his second wife used to make that observation frequently about him. We linked the abundant Aries energy in his chart with his passion, history of leadership, athleticism, and pioneering spirit, but also that sometimes Aries energy can be singularly focused on the self and not particularly attuned to the feelings of others. He agreed that this has often been the case with him. We talked about the placement of his Mars in Leo and his deep need for applause and admiration, which he has become so skillful at garnering. But then when all is said and done, his love life has not been satisfying to him because he always loses interest. We discussed the placement of his Capricorn South Node in the 10th. His childhood home environment was highly structured and provided routine and discipline, but the emotional tone was lacking in warmth and empathy. In school, he was a high achiever academically, athletic and popular. As an adult, professional success had come easily and naturally to him. We see Saturn in Aquarius ruling the South Node, symbolizing his leadership role as an activist for humanitarian causes in his youth, and as an adult, a reliable authority in his sophisticated integrative medical practice. In our last meeting, he mentioned to me that over the course of his career, that he had had 3 very significant and brilliant mentors, and commented proudly that most people had not even had one. I responded that not everyone had the same father hunger as he. He was startled, but resonated with this insight. It has been a blessing for our work that his own psychology deeply fascinates him, and he is very open and not at all defensive. I interpreted the sun squaring the nodal axis as a symbol of the difficulty and complexity of his relationship with his father. I saw its placement as an indication of the important need for him to do the psychospiritual work of acknowledging, grieving, and putting into perspective the profound impact his father's unavailability and infidelities have had upon his growth and development. I believe that doing that work will catalyze Francois' capacity to fulfill his life purpose as symbolized by the Cancer North Node in the 4th house. We talked about the North Node in Cancer as an archetype representing emotional sensitivity, of a need to prioritize his personal rhythms and preferences and family life. We talked about the dependency and deep vulnerability associated with the archetype of Cancer that was so utterly foreign to him, and about how when you are vulnerable, people can hurt your feelings. The notion of hurt feelings was such a foreign concept that he did not understand what I meant, and asked me for concrete examples. We looked at the placement of Venus in Pisces conjunct Chiron and the 11th house, and how naturally he has felt able to love humankind globally, but that truly personal, intimate love was still very unfamiliar territory. This has been a quick portrayal of the very beginning phase of my work with a patient. My intent with this presentation has been to illustrate a way in which astrology can fruitfully be combined with psychotherapy. It has been so helpful to our work together to refer to this objective snapshot of the sky at the moment of his birth, which so clearly mirrors his experience of himself and his life, and provides a sacred roadmap to him of his soul's purpose in this incarnation. It has caused me to reflect upon the way in which astrology is paradoxically both deeply personal and impersonal. We do not choose our birth charts, nor the families or societies or religions into which we are born, and yet it is up to us ultimately what we do with the archetypal invitations based upon the place and time of our incarnation. As one of my favorite astrologers, Emily Trinkus, said, astrology is an apprenticeship to mystery. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And I can imagine I've read your book. I completed it yesterday. And I found it fascinating to bring such a holistic approach, including astrology, but also nutrition and environmental factors into mental health. So I really recommend everyone to look into Judy's book, because I think this is really the future of any kind of therapeutic practice, whether physical or mental. And Judy, you are going to be selecting a number between 1 and 325.
222.
222 is going to be Monica Alonso. Beautiful. And a runner-up?
111.
Is Heidi Paulson. Thank you so much. I just want to share with everyone how I put it on Facebook, so you can hear. If you go to the page, let me just try to share again. If you go to the page, you will see the post is pinned on the featured section. So just click there and you'll be able to write down here if there's a particular gift that you would like. Beautiful. Amir, are you there? Amir's not there.
Amir is here.
Amir is here.
Yeah.
Are you ready to sequence in?
Yeah. I'm standing in front, so I'm ready now anytime.
Go.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the first day of the equinox of the year. And thank you very much, Maurice, for organizing this. You're always doing something special. I guess I could say, going to like my favorite or early influence astrologically, maybe Dane Rudhyar. And at first I thought, wow, this is a great astrologer. I mean, it's the first astrological literature that I ever read. And so, it was very inspiring. But it was years later before I understood that he was also like myself, multi-discipline artist, that he was a painter, that he was a writer, that he was a composer, and any one of those fields, he could have just been that by itself. So that was something that was inspiring. But everybody knows him. He's very famous and inspired many other people. So I would also like to talk about Charisse Green, who was my neighbor way back in the Bay Area when I lived there. Now, I began my studies in astrology in 1971 BC, before computers. In 73, I did my first readings for people. And the point that I would like to devote this to is not a planet, but the part of union, which the part of union is the same angle of between the sun and the north node, the true north node, and then the midheaven, from the midheaven, you apply that to the midheaven. And it's something that came up through my experimentations with combining composite and Davison relationship charts, that the sun, the midheaven, and the north node were always within 5 degrees of each other in those two types of charts. And so I because I'm a visual artist, I also then devised an image of the part of union from my tarot deck, the Equinox Celebration Tarot. And this is the Pact, which is the first decan of Aquarius. And then I went from that to Sumi, experimenting with Sumi images. And so this is the glyph that I came up with for the part of union. Now as you can see, this is all visual stuff. The thing that I wanted to do, the thing I wanted to talk about was when last year when Biden announced that he was going to run for the presidency, I was curious, not so much as like, will he win, like a prediction, but I was wondering, well, was it timely? When he made this announcement, what was coming? What was it coming from? What was going on in his, let's say, his personal momentum, his cyclic momentum, and if that was really a strong thing or not? So here's his natal chart. You see that he's got 4 planets in the 12th house. His Mars is just 1 degree away from that cusp. These are all in Scorpio. Rising sign Sagittarius. And that means that his ruler is Jupiter in Cancer. Now, what's interesting is although Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, his Jupiter is retrograde, which means that it's moving backwards, which means it has an indirect expression in some ways. And then also this stellium in the 12th house. And I think this is what explains why people don't really give him acknowledgement or recognition, because he's behind the scenes a lot. Even though we're familiar with everything that he does, he's very direct person, that's Sag rising, and then Venus conjunct Sun. You know, he's a lot of people who are involved in power situations and having power associates have Venus and Sun conjunct. And then also, if you look over here, Uranus, I should get my little dot thing out here. Uranus is conjunct within less than a degree of the 7th house. So then this also, brings them into legislative type activities. But again, though, I think that the thing that makes him relatively behind the scenes, behind the radar, is this 12th house emphasis in Jupiter retrograde. And also, I think that this is not a bad thing. It's just that if I want to use a metaphor or from theater, I would say that he's not an actor, he's a director. He's behind the scenes. And then he comes out, if you notice, he comes out, from his work, really. And then he makes a show, like his State of the Union address. So, okay, this is the chart then for his birth chart. By the way, 0 degrees Taurus moon, this is very important. Now, if you look at the chart for his announcement, now this was in April of 2023. And here we have the Sun and the North Node conjunct. That means that this decision happened. If you look at the moon is in Cancer. So this is about 3 or 4 days after a solar eclipse. And the solar eclipse was conjunct within minutes of his natal moon. So this emphasizes manifestation and productivity. It emphasizes the public, but it also shows the strength of the timing of his announcement. That it happened when an eclipse, a solar eclipse, was right on his natal moon, and his natal moon is in a nice position. It's in the 5th house, so then having that eclipse then in his 5th house, his natal 5th house, is a very expressive place for his announcement to be made in. There is one thing that I would say is maybe risky, and that is that he has a 165-degree angle between his Pluto and moon. So this could be his Pluto and his Mars in Cancer also, and that could be kind of risky. It could be a rupture. So it shows the difficulties that he's facing. That that his efforts. There's a lot of effort shown in this chart. But it also says that, there are things that he has to sacrifice and really push in order for these things to happen. Also, Jupiter, this ruling planet, is on the rising sign within a degree. So this is very good just personally for him, that his ruling planet is prominent in this chart, and is also a co-ruler of the chart. Questions? I'm not here. I don't know. Did you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I wasn't quite sure. Let me see what else is going on here in this chart. I like it as not as so much to say that he will be successful in this endeavor, as much as that when he made this decision. Okay, now this is like maybe 4 days after the eclipse, but he had to have been making that decision, formulating his plan around that time, of the eclipse. So he's highly motivated in this whole thing. So good luck to you, Joe. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amir. And I didn't introduce you properly because we were sequencing in from Shannon. I would like to really speak of your amazing work, as you can see in the background. Not just an artist, but a wisdom keeper, and immensely expressive Piscean AMIR.
Mm-hmm.
You've had your birthday recently.
19th of February, yeah, 0 degrees Pisces.
Okay. So early Pisces. And I just want to share that, of course, AMIR will be with us with his art at the Omega retreat coming up upstate New York. So everything that you've seen as far as his way of interpreting and using the visual and the visceral experience of astrology is going to also be part of the Omega experience. So Amir, you've also created a tarot deck. Can you
the Equinox of Tarot, yeah.
Can you speak just briefly how did this come about and what it is about?
Well, I always celebrate the equinox. It's just something that's always given me a lot of inspiration. My moon is 2 degrees Aries, so like it means a lot for me, just even personally. I guess I go off on it, But I always wanted to do a tarot deck, and I found it overwhelming to think about doing a tarot deck. Maybe it's because the traditional tarot that I was using, 72 cards, and I was using Crowley a lot. but it became overwhelming. And I think the reason why it was overwhelming for me to use the tarot, I think, excuse me, sorry, 78 cards. The reason why it was overwhelming is I was thinking traditionally, and this was inhibiting my personal perspective and expression of what the tarot could be about. And so I decided, I mean, I started carving a series of 36 carvings of stone that represented the 36 10-degree decans of the zodiac. And so after carving them, then I took photographs, and then I started experimenting. I had very close friends, particularly a very good friend who has now passed away. I did a series of readings for him and other people, and I became familiar with the incident that these different cards would come up in. I took a lot of notes, and then and I came up with a deck. And you know, I was surprised that, wow, this works, you know. But if you think about the spiritual mechanism behind it, I took 36 stones that were from the same stone and cut them so they were not only organically but chronologically connected to each other. And so there was there are a few reasons why, let's say, this worked. And it was surprised me because, well, everything that we do as astrologers, as occult artists, it's really beyond just our own personal experience. It's something broader and more collective that these things are born from. And so that was my experience in creating this tarot deck, the Equinox Celebration Tarot. And then I combined, you know, other things with it, like, I mean, this is a Sumi ink, a rendition of one of the cards, the Keeper of the Light, which is the last decan of Scorpio, by the way. And it just is a continual learning process for me. I finished this deck in 1980. And then, so here I am, I'm still doing something with it. I'm still making discoveries about it. And, you know, and that's going to be a continual process.
Beautiful. And I just posted your description of how to find the part of union in the chart. I posted it in the chat so people can, you know, have a written reference to it. So tell us now which number between 1 and 325.
Okay, here's the drum roll. I'm doing a drum roll right now. 36.
36. I mean,
Yes.
You have a drum behind you, so you can roll that one.
Yeah, I can, but you know what? I have art on top of it. I've got all kinds of stuff. I have to pull it off and play it. Okay, here's something. Here's the sun. The sun will tell us everything. Okay.
It's Barry Orr, who is the recipient. And
well, he's a good astrologer, and he's got the same birthday as my grandmother. So okay.
So you know him well.
Oh yeah.
And pick a runner-up, another number.
Okay, 287.
287 is Sophia Fernandez.
Out of sight. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amir.
Thank you.
And a beautiful sharing. Jessica, you want to go next? Are you ready?
Hi.
Hi.
All right. Good to be here, everybody. I'm Jessica. I'm going to bring in the moon. I'm going to tell a bit of a story about rites of passage and how life and astrology weave them together. So, astrology marks time. It tracks the timelines of cycles of growth in consciousness, both collective and personal. So to me, astrology is the language that speaks of how we are continuously cycling through journeys of initiations throughout our entire lives. All the planets are constantly spiraling through time and space, and so are we. We ascend, we descend, we wax, we wane, we go out, and we return back inward again. So when I was thinking about what I would talk about today, I remembered the first time that I had ever met Maurice Fernandez. It was 19 years ago. I was also pregnant with my daughter, who's now 18. And that was a pivotal rite of passage for me, not only into the world of motherhood, but also into the world of astrology. We met at the Evolutionary Astrology Conference in Sedona, which was an amazing event for me because I had just begun my apprenticeship with Jeff Green and Stephen Forrest. They were also going to be there. And it was my own astrology heaven at that time. I was just about 27 years old and was just beginning to discover what even a Saturn return was. So I felt like my consciousness was expanding into totally new worlds of possibility. I was awakening to so much about life and what the world of astrology had to offer. Uranus was transiting my 9th house on the cusp of the 10th, exactly opposing my sun, squaring my moon. I couldn't get close enough to the cosmos. So there are a couple impressions that most stuck with me about meeting Maurice for the first time. He seemed rare because he was the youngest, just about 30, already successful professional astrologer I had ever heard of. He was running a school already and published a book. And, you know, times have changed now, but back then, as far as I knew, to be an astrologer, it was a craft for the older, seasoned, more mature mystics. And of course, Pluto was destined to usher in a whole wave of young astrologers with the Scorpio and Sagittarius generations. Hello, TikTok. So I left that conference with his incredible Neptune book, and I read it throughout my entire pregnancy. And it was food for my soul and my budding destiny for a life of professional astrology. And it was in itself an initiation into ever deeper cosmic consciousness. Anyone who's read it knows. My moon is exactly conjunct Neptune. So I took that book in as a gift of fate. And my daughter, who I was pregnant with at the time, she loves astrology. And she's already at her young 18 years, read the Neptune book. And I wonder if there was something in her that remembered that I had already read that book to her while she was in utero. And I wonder if that was actually one of her first rites into the world of astrology. She was born with her moon exactly on her ascendant, rising into the 12th house. So we love astrology because it connects us to the field of cosmic consciousness and that within us. And it gives us awareness, which is the key that we all want. Our birth charts, our maps, showing us how we can play this game of life to the highest level of our character. and where we may fall into the shadows. It's simply a guide. We can see potentials and possibilities, and if we come with enough devotion, we can see the divine. So the way I see it is me being born a Virgo is no different than being born with black hair, female body. There are certain parameters that our souls choose to actualize themselves through, archetypes, if you will. And this by no means diminishes our infinite nature or our free will. It only serves to give it a purposeful container of expression. So the next time I would meet Maurice again was about 4 years later. I just happened to get privy to the fact that he would be on the big island of Hawaii, and I live in Hawaii. So I knew I needed to be, I just knew I needed to go. And it was there that we became friends. And that was another major rite of passage on my timeline. Pluto was just beginning to cross my descendant. I was going through divorce and a completely transformational death and rebirth to how I was relating to myself and the world around me. I stepped into my role as a professional astrologer at that time. I launched my website, Temples of the Moon, and I began writing lunar forecasts and just deeply attuning myself with all the planetary cycles. All the planets have their cycles through the 360-degree orbit of the zodiac wheel. Pluto transits are long, once in a lifetime, because it's the furthest out. And the moon moves fast, but repeats often, like an emotional wave. We get a brand new cycle of the moon every month, beginning with the new moon, returning with the sun, opposing at its opposition at the full moon, returning back again in its descent back to the sun. Repeating this cycle over and over, but it's never the same journey twice. It always comes back having made contact out there in the cosmos with a completely different set of circumstances on the path each time, much like our own lives and the journeys that we take each day. So what I began to recognize is that not only just in the epic moments of our lives, but each month as we grow and evolve through our experiences, we are always to some degree cycling through our own rites of passage. And we know, we feel in our societies how we don't give enough recognition to the transitions and the milestones. We just don't actively honor and celebrate that we are indeed growing and sometimes even completely up-leveling our consciousness through our experiences. So I began to see it as all the cycles in their ascension and descension represent the path of the hero's journey. A call to adventure, confrontation of obstacles and challenges, conquering the dragon of our own demons and limitations, and then beginning, once again, the journey back home, yet deeply changed, arriving as a new self. So we astrologers track the positions of the planets, because we know from thousands of years of observing life on Earth that within the dance of the cosmos are activations, gateways, portals into our own growth and awareness. Because we are of the Earth and the stars. So I have a very strong moon, as well as both of my daughters and my mother. The karmic cord to the female lineage in my family is profound. It's so natural to me to be so lunar. We're emotional, psychically receptive, instinctually nurturing. My daughter's 29 degrees Taurus moon, exactly on her ascendant. She is all phases of the moon every day. So as I shared earlier with my own personal timeline of rites of passage, with the once in a lifetime transit of Uranus, opposing my sun, squaring my moon when I was awakening to a whole depth of cosmic consciousness and birthing my cosmic child. And Pluto crossing my descendant when I was going through the death of my old self and birthing myself as an astrologer. Currently, I'm in the activation of Saturn crossing the midheaven. And 6 months ago, I literally felt the push from the universe that finally I needed to build an evolutionary astrology school online. And now it's open. Just 1 week ago, exactly when Saturn hit 11 degrees of Pisces, crossing into my midheaven. So in the school, I designed a monthly moon mapping journey.
Woohoo!
In the moon mapping journey, we together pay attention to the breakthroughs, milestones in our psyches as they present themselves each month. If it's a new moon, we try to recognize what is birthing. If it's a full moon, what is blossoming on the dark moon. We try to rest and assimilate all that we have experienced so that we may be clearer conduits to receive the wisdom. We recognize that we are one with the earth and the cosmos, and we desire to move in harmony. So, one last rite of passage I would like to share, moving beyond the divorce of the Pluto transit 15 years ago. So this summer, Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces will exactly oppose my Venus at 29 degrees Virgo, a once-in-a-lifetime transit. The 2 octaves of love coming together. And I'll be getting married. So, as astrologers often say, you can't make this stuff up. So I hope I was able to convey here the deeper message about how astrology connects us not only to the cosmos and the universal consciousness and to that within ourselves, but to our human experience and to each other. So I would just like to close by extending my dearest gratitude to you, Maurice, for all that you are, all that you have done for the field of astrology, for humanity, for the animals, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And so many beautiful, beautiful, groundbreaking news. Congratulations on your development, on the school, and on the marriage. I met the happy and lucky fellow, and I cannot express my own joy and gratitude for you.
Thank you.
And I really like your sharing because it really is personal, like the moon is, right? It doesn't have the whistles and bells of moving slides and complicated graphics. It's direct experience of your heart, your presence to all of us. So that in itself is a beautiful sharing of the moon. And I would like
Glad you
to,
liked it.
yeah, and I would like to also share your website where people can see what you've been endeavoring. Temples of the Moon. The giveaway from Jessica is a soul map journey book, which is personalized, very lunar-like, personalized for the person who would like one. So Jessica has worked very hard to manifest this beautiful little child, not only biological children, but creative ones as well. And you can see Jessica's website where she offers her school and her books and personal consultations, templesofthemoons.com. Check it out. And Jessica, you can select a winner, with your, choose a number between 1 and 325.
All right, I'll choose 275.
275 is Shannon Hayes.
I know her.
Yeah, Shannon Hayes from Arizona.
Nice.
Beautiful. And another runner-up?
88.
88 is Eileen Molino. So great. Thank you for your tribute. Means a lot to me at this time, especially on the equinox. Thank you. And we are back with Shannon. Shannon,
Yes.
Texas calling. I know you're under eclipses, crisscrossing the state. So
Absolutely. Right in the crosshairs here. Can you see my screen? Great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. So, hello, astrology friends and family. My name is Shannon Gill, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. Also very honored to be here today. Astrology completely transformed my life whenever I had my very first official reading at age 30 by the founder of the school that I then entered, the Archetypal Academy in Boulder, Colorado, where I was pretty much initiated into astrology, alchemy, Jungian dream work. I have a degree in Buddhist psychology, which was my first love that I weave through all of my work. Dance, music, and art therapy are also a big part of my passion and all of my work with my partner, Russell Olhausen. We have the Shift Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to this massive time on the planet that we find ourselves in. And I would say that astrology couldn't be a more valuable tool for all of us to honor and to practice. And so thank you for inviting me, Maurice. Maurice also was my main initiate into astrology. I went through his program. He was a guest at the Archetypal Academy and sat next to me. And I knew that day that he was to be my next teacher. And so I'm really grateful for the continued relationship. And I am honoring Pluto today. Pluto in Aquarius. I think we all need to pay homage to this massive ingress, which may be the biggest ingress of our entire life, as it is the last of the outer planets to enter Aquarius. A lot of people want to know, are we there yet? I would say the answer is yes. And it is requiring that each of us become master alchemists to traverse the underworld, keep our eyes on the horizon, dig deep while reaching higher and higher, trusting the unknown in this age of uncertainty. And I feel as if I'm a qualified representative to speak to this aspect, as I have 0 degrees Aquarius rising. So in a lot of ways, I feel that my life has been a transmission of this moment in evolutionary history, that I am sort of like the poster child. I literally bought the Shift Foundation domain over a decade ago, sat on it knowing this threshold was upon us. It was more of an instinctual, as your ascendant usually is, knowing that something massive was coming. And so I guess I feel like a good representative to say, we're going to survive and it's going to be amazing. And I'm a little sad that Petra's not here yet, because this is the astrologer that I wanted to honor today. She is my astrology twin. Actually, we're born on the same day, same year. And so these are, we won't go into it too deep, but she's older than me by 6 hours. I will say that. And it's fascinating. So in astrology, there's a whole study, astrological physiognomy, which is the study of facial features. And Russell, my partner, is one of the many areas of research that he's gone into in quite depth.
We see your screen and the heart on your ascendant.
Good. Okay. Yes, that's my attempt to embrace this once in a lifetime dance with Pluto that I'm also in, and that I was speaking to. Thank you and for your patience with my slides. And so let's keep moving. Okay, do you see the slide now of Petra and I?
Yeah.
Perfect. I was hoping in that little blip of time she might come on, and I think she's still finding her way through the Neptunian waters. And I spoke to this briefly, but this astrological study of zodiological features and faces, I thought would be a fun way to honor a fellow astrologer, to bring on my soul sister. So you can see we were born just a few hours apart, and she's the older sister. And the facial features are really what stands out. So what I was mentioning is the crooked smile up on the left, we both have. And, even though the stellium falls in my 8th house of Scorpio, she's a Scorpio ascendant. And then the stellium falls in her mostly 11th house, and I'm in the Aquarius ascendant. So it's interesting because we share notes all the time. It's been such a gift to both have gone through your program, Maurice, and to both be astrologers, and to have such a unique alignment in this way. And of course, we both are Venus and Leo, so we have the good Leonian hair. So hopefully she will be able to tune in with us soon. So my share today that I wanted to come on about is how eclipses are portals to the future. And I thought it was quite appropriate, being in this moment that we're here, and this historical eclipse that right here in the heart of Texas, we're going to be in the 100% totality of 4.5 minutes of darkness. And so eclipses as portals to the future, as they take us from one point in our evolutionary time and space to another, is my topic today. And so the question being, what is an eclipse? And so we have this little video here. Do you see the video, Maurice? Okay, great. So essentially, it's kind of obscure to describe sometimes, but it's the rotation, the Earth going around the ecliptical orbit. The plane which contains the orbit of the Earth is called the ecliptic, excuse me, not always easy to say. And then the moon revolving around the Earth in an orbit, which is not in the plane of the ecliptic, but it's inclining towards it at a degree of 5 degrees. And it's because of this tilt that the moon's orbit intersects the ecliptic plane at 2 points. And these are the points that we call the nodal axis, or Rahu Ketu. And this process takes about 18 years, so essentially to complete, and one revolution around the Earth. And this is also significant to note that the revolution is in an opposite direction as the other planets go. So I wanted to show that because sometimes when we're describing what creates an eclipse, which is a newer full moon conjunct the nodal axis, it is a bit obscure to explore. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Yeah, so I think that the reason why I wanted to talk about this is there's controversy when it comes to eclipses. There's a lot of people that fear eclipses, a lot of cultures, a lot of even astrological philosophies that believe that they're malefic potentially, and that you know, we shouldn't be outside and we shouldn't look at them, and that they bring devastation and they bring darkness. And you know, this is one of the reasons why I love and I chose evolutionary astrology, because I feel like we're coming out of the age of dualism, the age of polarity, the age of Pisces, the age of separation. And we're moving into this Aquarian age where we're starting to work, as I mentioned, more as alchemists, and understanding that the connection between the light and the dark, you know, obviously, and that we don't have sun, you know, we don't have night without day. We don't have the in-breath without the out-breath. And so I wanted to, you know, just explore a little bit that, you know, there's been many positive things that also happen during eclipse cycles, is maybe just not making the news. You know, it's usually like bad news travels fast kind of thing. But, you know, just a few just to name are just like, Einstein's theory of relativity was confirmed. The United Nations was found after World War II. These are big, significant shifts in our evolution. The first telephone call was made during an eclipse portal. And so what I wanted to introduce as an invitation, and I know this isn't new to everyone, is that there's a way in which that we can work with these lunations intentionally. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm also a Jungian counselor. And so I go deep into Jungian astrology and, philosophy and psychology. And one of the tenets of Jung's work that really resonates so strong with me is this idea of enantiodramy, that it actually, evolution happens through the tension between the light and the dark. And that eclipses are the big turning points on the planet. And so it's this, like the metaphor of the crossbow, like the pulling back, the tension, the further back we go, then whenever it releases, you know, there can be a quantum leap in evolution. And I feel like this is something that we can lean into to give us some understanding and some hope around these dark times, this apocalyptic moment that we find ourselves in. Instead of going into fear of doom and gloom and, you know, these idealizations about a dystopian future, perhaps we just look to nature and we remember that we evolve in the natural cycles of death and rebirth. And humanity is essentially in one of the most grand of those, as we cross through this birth canal into a new age, which is always an end of an era and the beginning of another era. And so we find ourselves here in the eclipse portal, and eclipses are known as portals of time. It's like a cauldron of energy that is doing its alchemical magic. It's 6 weeks. It opens 2 weeks before the first lunation and won't close till the 2 weeks after. In this case, this is, I think it was the new moon in Pisces that opened the gate just like a week and a half ago. And it will close with the full moon in Scorpio at the end of April. And so we're in the Aries Libra axis. Every 18.5 years, the nodal axis will return to the same position. So when we're talking about eclipses, we're talking about a continuation of themes, of evolutionary themes, of great beginnings and of great endings on the evolutionary journey that we're on, both personal and collective. So we can look back 6 months to the previous eclipse, or we can look back 9 years. Or 18 years. So in this case, that would have been 2015, 2006, to glean the meaning from our own evolutionary journey. And of course, this is the axis we like to consider as the axis of relationships. This is also the axis of war and peace, which I really want to emphasize. This is a very important eclipse portal that we're in. We understand, we look back at the previous eclipse cycle in the fall in November, October, November, we had the eruption going on in Israel. And so we are definitely at this, what I feel, the gate. You know, it's like we've been having Braxton Hicks through this threshold, and certainly it's a cusp as we're going through the end of an age and the beginning of an age, perhaps starting in the 60s or beyond. No one knows for sure. It's all speculation. But this is where speaking the archetypal language becomes so valuable, because if you know the archetypes, you see the dissolving of one with the rising of the other happening simultaneously. So this first eclipse that's upon us will be the lunar eclipse, March 25th. In the sign of Libra, South Node eclipse. So bringing up old patterns, relational patterns, codependency patterns. I do a lot of work with sacred relationship. Libra's the first decan. We're traveling through in the age of Aquarius, knowing that the precession goes backwards. That means the first 700 years, relationship is the crucible to accelerate our evolution, in the sense that seeing ourselves as mirrors, as fractals of the one, instead of all of the continued division, which the more that we stay in a state of division, we're perpetuating the original wound of separation, which is what the whole challenge is right now, is to wake up out of that amnesia state of separation reality, separation consciousness into organismic consciousness, which I loved, Soul, your presentation, because I feel that myself so deeply, being zero Aquarius, this multidimensional reality that we're coming out of a paradigm where essentially humanity, you know, we fall asleep and we wake up over time, remembering ourselves as one organism, organismic consciousness. When enough people start to wake up to that frequency, we'll organically reconstruct every aspect of our world. So the mirror, Libra, becomes the accelerating force. So wherever we're getting triggered, wherever we're giving our power away, etc., becomes the work. And then, of course, the big eclipse. Oh, yes, of course. I have a couple slides in here to remind us, mirror, mirror on the wall. And then the solar eclipse, 19 Aries, April 8th, the one that we are creating a lot of hoopla around here where I live, Texas style, a lot of big energy. Very, very big, important eclipse at 19 Aries, not just the eclipse in Aries, but 6 planetary bodies in Aries, the warrior. Yes, this is war, but it's also activation. And this is what I'm really passionate about, is also this contribution to evolution, to work with the eclipses directly instead of to fear them, to part of the awakening out of the dream of powerlessness or of separation, or being a bystander to reality, to the politics, to the media, to even the priest, is that we're waking up to our divine responsibility to birth this new age. And so birth is active. So here we are. This is where I feel like this eclipse is very important. You know, 2020, we came and there was this shock. It was like the revealing. This is us getting closer through that birth canal. 2021 was like chaos, trying to reorganize. Oh, the system's falling. What are we going to do? And then I feel like last year was existential initiation, each of us being initiated, self-initiated into the unknown. And 2024 feels like game on. It's the year of the dragon. We have all this fire energy. It's time to activate whatever our contribution is to the organism. So it feels very, very exciting. And it feels very important that we realize our role and our sacred contract is needed. Leo polarity to the Aquarius organism is to give our gift, to shine our light, what lights us up. So I feel really excited about this. I feel like there's no coincidence that I live right here in the heart of Texas. People like to put their heads in the sand saying that things will improve themselves. No, they will not. The hour of a great decision has struck, Rudolf Steiner. The shadow of Libra being complacency, compliance, wanting things to be comfortable at all cost. That, from my perspective, is collective suicide. We have to be in action right now. And so I love the sacred warrior image, the Bodhisattva. And this is what I feel like this eclipse is saying, calling all spiritual warriors. And not just this eclipse, but in general, as this time, all the outer planets are leaving, you know, the zodiac, and we're moving into this completely new paradigm, a new Genesis. And we are the ones to carve this out. And that's the difference between the old age, where we're told what to do and the powers outside of us, and this new time where we remember ourselves as divine co-creators and we're actively participating. The spiritual warrior must be one that has a broken heart. Without a broken heart, the sense of tenderness and vulnerability, your warriorship is untrustworthy. This for me feels very important, and also like the balance of the Venus and the Mars, the actual balance between the nodes. Seeing through the one mind and maintaining balance in the storm. They're not passive states. They're actions which require devotion and duty towards a goal of integrity and authenticity. And so this is not a time to go to sleep. This is a time to be awake and to remember that we can work with these energies consciously, that we can, I've had incredible things happen in my life during eclipses. And so just trusting that there's intelligence in the darkness, there's wisdom in the darkness, everything and everyone is playing its role right now. And that we're moving out of, part of moving out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius is from duality to quadrality. And so it is, we have been initiated into the unknown. And this is the time that all warriors are being called to activate, to initiate, to relegate this new earth. And so calling all spiritual warriors to Texas, we have a 4-day symposium for the event. We have an incredible group of light workers, not just astrologers. We still have space April 5th through 8th. And thank you so much.
Wow. What I really appreciate, Shannon, I'm also going to share your slide here from your website so people can see it for longer. This is the event you're organizing, and one, you know, each one here is bringing such a different experience of astrology. And what I really would say, what I've experienced with you, is that you are the priestess of astrology, in the sense that you bring ritual and celebration and activations through ceremony and dance. So while we can use astrology in our personal lives and teach it and do readings, what you and perhaps AMIR and perhaps all of us in some ways do, but your event here really captures how we are showing up to align with these celestial events, with these important milestones, not only from our computers, but we are actually in ceremony. And that's very important. It's very precious. That's how astrology was part of astronomy back in the day. It used to be a union between earth and sky. So definitely, if this calls you, Texas is nearby. take that eclipse leap. And I will share also that personally, I share your sentiment about a lot of apprehension and a lot of fear around eclipses. And I think they can be the most amazing time, but there's this period of darkness. And what is darkness? It's just a moment of not being in control. And maybe that's what eclipses are, is that we have to trust something beyond our vision, something of a deeper, fateful destiny.
The womb of unmanifest creation is darkness, and I agree 100%. One last thing about our event is that it is about Sangha, and we have a Tibetan monk that's coming, that's going to be doing a live sand mandala ritual throughout, and live Tonka painting, and a sky dancer ritual in our Saturday night dance of the gods. So there's a lot of extraordinary people showing up for this.
Amazing. I mean, I'm going to be in St. Louis, but if not, I would have come. And pick a number between 1 and 365, which your giveaway is a presentation on the Aquarius age.
81.
81. The 80s are really roaring here. Desiree Brookman. Beautiful. And a runner-up?
107.
107 is Hannah Berglund. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merryman from Sagrada Familia. ¿Cómo estás?
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Y'all's presentations have been beyond the beyond. And thank you, Maurice. And
You're ready
Equinox
to go?
Club.
Just making sure,
Yes,
because we changed the order a little bit.
I'm good.
All right. So Merryman is another priestess. And I became familiar with Merryman's work, fascinated by her work with the bees, which I like all animals, but when you start to weave the sacredness of nature, especially other conscious being, I was very intrigued. And Merryman is not only a gifted astrologer, but herself a manifester, and herself someone who will lead you through ceremony and through magic, a very rich universe. So let's go and be the bees.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Everyone can see the screen.
Yes.
Beautiful. It was 2002 when I first met the bees. Their hives were neatly lined along the edge of the pasture of my father-in-law's mountain house. Little did I know then that my love affair with the bees would long outlast my love affair with his son. This fateful meeting even inspired Santa Claus to bring beehives that Christmas. The following spring, my 10-year-old daughter and I were certified as official North Carolina state beekeepers. As the children grew and the marriage waned, I became increasingly enthralled with the hum of the hive and the intricate yet orderly systems of these tiny beings of light. The revelations the bees shared ignited a profound quest for my own personal truth. This fascination propelled me to the studies of astrology and bee shamanism. granting me a magical carpet ride from traditional astrology's concrete foundations to the nuanced frequencies of vibrational astrology and the trans-Neptunian points of Uranian astrology. My interests have expanded to encompass Kundalini yoga and the timeless wisdom stored in the Akashic records. I chose to celebrate the TNP Cupido as it so closely reflects the nature of the hive, with its traits of love and community. This collage includes Venus and Mars, who are Cupid's mom and dad. I've also chosen to honor Artemis, the goddess of the moon and the hunt, along with Pythia, the ancient oracle of Delphi, who carried the energy of both the Melissae, also called the bee priestess, and the Kundalini energy of the earth serpent. As I share today's presentation, I'll also share collages I've created over time to represent the transiting energy of a moment. Please lean in with playful curiosity, allowing the images to steep within you and awaken a remembering of the divine flow of life, the sacred geometry of our being, with each element building organically on what has come before. Here is the story told in the words of the bees. In the sacred dance of the buzzing realm, where the hive hums with the whispers of the planets, we bees have long understood the profound connection between the heavens and the earthly domain. We flit from petal to petal, gleaning wisdom from the radiant sun. We recognize the infinite and eternal nature of the universe. Each turn of our intricate dance echoes the movements of the stars above. For we are but reflections of the cosmic symphony that resonates throughout existence. Just as the heavens guide our flight, so too does the rhythm of the earth reflect the sacred geometry that binds us all together. In this harmonious interplay, we find that the universe, the world, the stars, every sentient being is intertwined on every level, perfect reflections of each other in the eternal dance of creation. In the moist cavern of our home pulses the breath of life itself. We know our brief lives lived in deep service link the infinite cosmos. From the gentle sway of the flowers below to the radiant dance of the stars above, we perceive the eternal flow of life force energy that courses through every living being. As we gather nectar from blossoms kissed by the sun, we are charged with the radiance of all that is. Within the sacred confines of our womb-like hive, scented with the essence of the cosmos love affair with flora, we bees craft our masterpiece, the hexagonal cell, a divine homage to the intricate geometry of the universe. Using delicate wax for our comb, we align each facet with an intuition that echoes the celestial choreography above. Just as the heavens shepherd your human movements, so too does the heartbeat of the earth resonate with the symphony of the cosmos, echoing the eternal axiom, as above, so below. In the vibrant symphony of our buzzing hive, we gleefully hum with the resonance of the cosmos, attuned to the frequency and vibrations that permeate our world. Each hum, each buzz, echoes the sacred rhythm of existence, vibrating in harmony with the star song. And with the harmonious crescendo, we find the perfect completion of the sacred number 7, the embodiment of wholeness and fulfillment. Just as the ancients revered the 7 notes of the solfeggio and the 7 colors of the rainbow, so do we bees recognize the significance of the 7 planets of the Chaldean order. In their universal dance, these planets embody the essence of vibration and frequency, each contributing its unique resonance, from the fiery intensity of Mars to the serene tranquility of Venus. Each planet adds its own hue to the palette of existence. In our humble service, we offer the treasures of our hive, sweet honey, healing propolis, and the sting's potent venom, as gifts of love to our earthly companions. We can aid you on your journey towards wellness. We are indeed a superorganism, guided by a millennia of collective wisdom, just as the celestial forces dance in orchestrated unity, shaping the rhythms of life on Earth. Through our innate understanding of natural cycles and healing properties, we humbly serve as messengers of the heavenly wish, for balance and harmony, for all who trod upon our mother and the ultimate queen, Gaia. Our dance, dear ones, the dance of 8, mirrors the very pattern of the heavens. When we venture forth to collect the sacred nectar, our movements echo the sun's journey. A straight ascent, a return, a mirror image in the opposite side, all imbued with purpose. The angle of our dance, as it aligns with the hive's sacred geometry, guides our kin to the floral banquet we've discovered. This is the dance of infinity. And what of the stars themselves? In their brilliant radiance, they shower their blessings upon us. The stars, dear ones, they charge our world with energy, infusing our blossoms with their astral essence. As we sip the nectar, we become conduits of the cosmos, drawing forth the very energy of these stars into our being. With our honey and even our sting, we share this wisdom with you. As bees, we cherish the bond with our devoted stewards, the souls who embrace our ways and seek our counsel. Being social beings, we delight in the tales of our human and planetary companions. Share with us your mysteries, your delights, and your woes. We are forever captivated by the greater hive that shelters us all. And as we conclude our blessed time together, we bees leave you with a thought. Seek moments of quiet contemplation, separating yourself from the cares of the world and to commune with the wisdom of the Great Mother. In the whispers of the wind and the rustle of the leaves and the gentle hum of the hive, you can find solace and guidance. For in the humblest of creatures lies the deepest wisdom, a song of glory for the great creator of all things. So let us learn from the bees, from the earth and from the stars, for their lives are a testament to the divine harmony that binds us all. Thank you.
Thank you for this journey from your temple to
Thank
the
you.
hive, from your cathedral.
That's right, in the basement.
So I wonder if there is an illustration maybe that you have or that you can show that pattern of 8 of infinity that the bees are creating in their dance.
We actually, I actually recreated the pattern with the moon in one of the slides, but there is, if you go, you can see if you shoot a picture of the sun every day for 365 days, you will see this pattern of 8.
Amazing.
And the moon also will, if you were able to photograph it, will show that pattern as well. So this is replicated by the bees in the hive as a method that is vibrational because their little feet are on the comb. And it is telling her sisters, who the female bees are the ones who go out, the worker bees, and gather. So this is giving that message of truth and infinity, as the hive is a superorganism.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Here, I'm sharing your website
Thank you.
in the know at merrymancassells.com is your email.
Right.
And here you offer consultations, which is your giveaway for this particular celebration today.
Correct.
So a number.
Okay. Well, we have to go with 8.
Oh, go for it.
Yes.
Just number 8. Okay.
Number 8. Right. The
Alicia
infinite 8.
CC
Yes.
is our first one.
And 12.
And 12, of course. Amara Shepherd. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Lucky winners. Thank you, Merryman, and thank you for the honey and the nectar. Shane?
Hello.
Shane from Minnesota. Is it
In my
sunset already?
background.
Welcome on board, and thank you for being part of this special moment with everyone. Shane is going to present about the 6th house, when the night falls. Tell us what made you choose that, and of course, what your special body is.
House
Celestial
will
body.
explain itself once I get to my chart example for that.
All right.
So, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Astrology Day 2024. And thank you, Maurice, for the invitation to share with you all today. I'm Shane M. NYGAARD, and I've been studying astrology for over a dozen years. I started with archetypes, actually, through Carolyn Mace's Sacred Contracts course about a dozen years ago. And I'm currently between websites and not big on social media these days, but here is my contact email should you wish to connect. So since we're each sharing about a planet, my planet of choice is Uranus. I chose Uranus as I am a very Uranian person myself, with Sun, Mars, and Uranus in a T-square in my natal chart. And have you ever had one description profoundly deepen your entire understanding of a planet? For me, it's this line from Carl Karenyi about Uranos in Greek myth. Gaia, for her part, bore first of all and as her equal the starry sky Uranos, so that he should completely cover her. The starry sky. I mean, it's not the blue sky we're used to, but the night sky and the sky of the solar system and beyond. I mean, Uranos is the universe. This is Uranus. And this really helped me to finally connect clearly Uranus with genius and uniqueness. Because with the mystical truth of as above, so below, we can understand an astrological birth chart as our own unique inner reflection of the Uranian starry sky. Our chart reflects our own unique genius through the eyes of Uranus. This is how we can understand on Astrology Day, Uranus as the planet synonymous with the art and science of astrology. And also from Greek myth, we see how when Gaia, Earth, and Uranos, the starry sky, mated, they created many monsters, including the 3 Cyclopes, Argos, Steropes, and Brontes, who were strong and skilled blacksmiths creating tools out of metal. And I've got a Uranus T-square. Of course, I have my Funko Pop Cyclopes. But we also see when Gaia and Uranus unite, we get our modern cyclopes, telescope, camera, and our patron saint of this event, webcam. Our one-eyed techno wonders. We're here together looking through the eye of a mythic cyclops. So to move us to my main piece, from the castration of Uranus by Saturn with his scythe, Uranus's severed genitals flew into the ocean foamed, and from the foam arose Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. I have Venus in my own chart in Pisces in my 6th house, which brings us to a short look at the 6th house, when night falls. I'm a big fan of psychologist Carl Jung's work, who really focused on sticking with the image, with the full image as imagery and imagination and their fullest holographic dimensions. We'll look at the 6th house through the imagery of the time of day, so about 6 to 8 p.m. If that sounds weird, I'm Uranian. Of course I look at things different. But really, imagine the 12 houses divided as 2-hour blocks of time, thus creating a 24-hour day. The ascendant is sunrise at 6 a.m., and the day progresses clockwise. The 6th house is 6 to 8 p.m., when the sun has set and disappears below the horizon. Although the sun has just set, its fading light is still present, showing us the 6th house is where day and night exist simultaneously. Twilight is upon us, and light is scarce. Junichiro Tanizaki says in Praise of Shadows, if light is scarce, then light is scarce. We will immerse ourselves in the darkness and there discover its own particular beauty. Tanizaki could easily be describing the scarce light of the 6th house. Its beauty can be literal, as seen in twilight images of early evening pink and blue and violet hues. The dimming, disappearing horizon line. Or the many shades of cool, calming oranges. As Irish poet mystic John O'Donohue says, I always think that it's amazing that a twilight is so silent because it has the grandeur of music. And the grandeur of music is exemplified by our chart example today. Internationally renowned opera singer Elina Garanca from Riga, Latvia. I adore her and her voice. And I had the opportunity to talk with her about astrology when I was last in New York to see her from the front row center singing my absolute favorite opera aria when she performed in The Damnation of Faust. She gave me her birth time and permission to share her chart. I named her the Voice of Twilight, as we're immediately drawn to her 6th house and that gorgeous stellium. Not to mention the majority of her chart is below the horizon line. Particularly of note is Venus in Libra in the 6th house, the aesthetic of what I call Venus after sunset, bringing a darker aesthetic. As a New York Times reporter wrote of her performance, her mezzo-soprano, a pearl smooth column of silvery sound that soars into the theater like a laser, remains one of the most coolly luxurious voices in opera. I mean, he captured that twilight quality of her voice so well in words. And unfortunately, we realized during a test session that I can't share the sound on this. I was going to
Try it again. I think it should work now.
Okay, so to immerse ourselves in Twilight's particular beauty, here's a short 30-second burst of Alina from The Damnation of Faust. Marguerite's love, Faust, has left. Darkness sets in, and she feels as though the sun has set. Listen to Twilight coming through her coolly luxurious voice, exemplifying her chart. Ah, and while not ignoring her Gemini moon's influence in these short examples here, and I love when a chart with strong Gemini influences includes various doubles, like the doubling between her Gemini moon and the qualities of the sixth house. So for her Romantique collection, she brings together arias of love and despair, not unlike Twilight, bringing together both day and night. She has a memoir book, Zwischen den Welten, which is Between the Worlds, about her path on the great opera stages. Again, Twilight is the time zwischen den Welten, of day and night. So on point. And in Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier, she played the boy part, which is a pants role, Octavian, and is both boy and girl simultaneously. And when she played Dalila in Saint-Saëns Samson et Dalila, she described her portrayal of the character as attempting to find the little bit of light that shines through the wall of the femme fatale, a seemingly Twilight interpretation of Dalila. I love it. And here's me fanboying with Alina at the Metropolitan Opera stage door twice. And on a final note, last week, Alina released her latest album, When Night Falls. See what I did there with my sixth house title? The notes say, full of ambivalent sensations, colors, and shades, nighttime has long been special to Alina Garancha. For some people, the night can be full of fear and uncertainty. It's a time when you're alone and confronted with yourself, she says. And yet, it can also bring peace. The world calms down and falls asleep, and we humans can find calm as well. So we could explore the sixth house endlessly and fill libraries full of books about it, but this is it for my time. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope this brings new light to your understanding of the sixth house.
Thank you so much, especially as the sixth house is often, like eclipses, not always seen in favorable light in astrology.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring here its grace, its function, and its mystique. Beautiful. I wonder, obviously, how your chart interact with hers.
Yeah, that's a whole nother talk. But I love that she has Venus in Libra in the sixth house, and I have Venus in Pisces in the sixth house. So I just feel a natural rapport with the beauty that she brings into the world through her voice. And I can just share, if people want to see more on how I work with the houses through light, there is a video out on YouTube. I did it with Stormy Grace, and just search my name, Shane M. NYGAARD, and there's 3 videos that'll come up. One of them is a journey through the houses through the course of a day.
That's great. Thank you. So can you pick a number?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3 is going to be James Hilton, who is awarded a reading with you.
Yep.
A
A 1
full
hour.
hour. Thank you. That's very generous as well. I mean, we're blessed here with amazing astrologers with good heart and minds. So another number in case James
We'll
cannot
go with
show
3,
up.
2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Ingvild Havmstad is a runner-up for your offering. Thank you so much, Shane.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to share now a video from Chiron. Chiron Yang is presenting about Saturn, malefic or benefic. And it's intricate story with how he experienced it. Chiron, he lives in Malaysia, and so it's the middle of the night where he is, and he pre-recorded his presentation here. So let me see if it's gonna go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Astrology Day. Welcome to this astrological new year and happy spring equinox. Thank you, Maurice, for bringing all of us here and having this opportunity to share astrological insights. Today, I'll be sharing a little bit about Saturn and is it malefic or is it benefic? All right. And before I go on, I'm going to share a little bit about who I am. I am someone who have been through a series of health crises of what people might have referred as dark night of the soul. But because of that, it has made me who I am today. And I'm someone who is a spiritual health practitioner. Using tools like astrology and the lifeline technique, I help people to transform their subconscious mind where limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors are stopping them from receiving and experiencing health and happiness. And another fun fact about me besides my job is that I love to dance and I love music. In my downtime, that's what you'll see me doing every day. Okay, there will be a giveaway at the end of this, series of presentations that we're gonna get. And what you're gonna get from me is what this new book that I've written a couple of weeks ago, that I've launched a couple of weeks ago, and it has received a best-selling status in Amazon. I'm so proud to be sharing because it has timeless wisdom that I've excavated from all the experiences of my pain and my journey to debunk a lot of the health things there's out there. And fun fact about this book is that I have structured this book based on the different Saturn turning points, right? The first quarter square, the opposition, the third quarter square, and of course the Saturn return into 4 different parts. And I think it's so profound for anyone who reads this book because you're able to walk this journey as if it's your own journey and receive this timeless wisdom to really understand your own quest and your own path for self-actualization and healing. So to answer the question of my topic, right, Saturn is both malefic and benefic, depends on your relationship with it, right? How do you transform your consciousness towards Saturn is really showing you whether it's limitation or the opportunity that it's going to give you if you really learn the lessons and align your speech, your thoughts, and your action towards the true meaning, the true lessons that is behind the karmic intentions that was living in your soul. And this is why getting a reading from an astrologer and you can really understand these karmic lessons and really potentially transform them, because when you're able to be aware of it, that means you're able to make new choices in life. A little bit about Saturn, in case you don't know a lot about astrology, is that it's the ruling planet of the sign of Capricorn, the cardinal Earth. It takes 28 to 29 years to complete a cycle and to go through all 12 signs. Saturn and Jupiter shares the same glyph, and the fun fact about it is just it's upside down. Saturn is often associated with authority figures, structure of society, and all the agreed norms and rules, spoken and unspoken, that has passed, the test of time. In alchemy, it's associated with the metal lead, and symbolically means limitation, suffering, depression, and grief. And medically, medical astrology, it shows up in our skin, in our bones, joints, and in our spine. And otherwise, not to forget that Saturn is an important marker of time. And it shows us the key developmental phases physically, emotionally, spiritually, and shows us where we receive and experience turning points in our life. Otherwise, also known as the Lord of Karma, right? The planet associated with cause and effect. So this is my birth chart. I have a Saturn in the 8th house in the sign of Capricorn, and it's retrograde. And when I see this placement in the chart, I always see that this person have to go through really deep understanding of the nature of life, where there's a lot of pain, suffering, and really understanding why we have to go through those experiences. Right? 8th house is usually associated with the house of Scorpio, where I have to empower myself to learn things from the trenches of life and to demystify a lot of the taboo, a lot of the assumptions and expectations that might misalign us from the truth, right? So this is the part of me where I go into deep research into healing and really truly actualizing what it means to become the best human potential. Other fun fact about my chart is that I'm a Leo and my moon's in Virgo, and my rising sign is in Gemini. So what happened during my birth is that the doctor was not present already, showing signs Saturn in the 8th house, conjunct Neptune, right? The authority figure was not around to receive me. And my mom had an asthma attack, and then she was drugged and was forced into labor not long after she was medicated. So the birth environment that I grew up with was extremely sterile, cold, and reactive, where there was a lot of turmoil, confusion. And as a result of that, I don't know how I felt as a child, but at least I know when I go back to my emotions and really in tune my body, because the body always remembers. I just forgotten it. My conscious mind just forgotten it. I've realized that there's a lot of abandonment, rejected, and feeling unworthy associated with the events that actually happened during that time. Of course, as a result of that, I started blaming and becoming very self-righteous as a person. By the time I was 8 years old, as you can see, Saturn in Aries, with the stellium of Aries at that time, in such a key development of childhood and entering elementary school, is that I wanted to exercise my authority. I wanted to be someone who is self-made and really share that I can be independent and find this unique individuality that I have. By the time I was repressed, I was restricted. I was showing signs where my skin starts to flare up, and I was diagnosed with eczema. And the doctor said, hey, you got to be medicated your whole life, and you had no choice. And then, that fear got into my parents' head. And basically, I wasn't allowed to do so many things, and I was so restricted. And that made me constantly fighting with my father. Right? Saturn, Mars, Mercury, all in Aries, fighting. So we had all these disputes at the time. But at the time, I was conditioned to realize and understand that my opinion don't matter. So from this rowdy, excited kid, I became this shy, quiet kid and felt like I had to do everything alone. And I repressed all my childlike nature at the time. And I grew up too quickly. By the time I turned 14, Saturn is in the sign of Cancer. And what's interesting about this chart is that Saturn-Chiron opposition starts to flip around. And at that time, my woundedness was the highest. At that time, I lost completely all of my individuality, and I was basically a carbon copy of my father and my elder brother and everybody who is high achiever and high performer of life. So I started seeking value, Saturn in the 2nd house. I started seeking value, my worth, and to find my place in the society, to have a place to belong. I started working so hard to prove myself. And of course, I stick out like a sore thumb, wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And I became this kid who is extremely obedient on the outside, but completely rebellious on the inside. But despite that, despite all the skin symptoms that were showing up, I thrived as a scholar, and I was a model student in school. Unfortunately, I had to stop my medication and I go into a place of withdrawal 2 years after that. This was when Saturn went into the fourth house in the sign of Virgo, interestingly, and I was forced to stop school. So looking back at the lesson at Saturn in Cancer is that don't rush your development. Don't rush yourself, and really take time to find who you are and process your emotions and be who you are. But I didn't know astrology at that time, so I wasn't able, my parents weren't able to teach me and guide me at that time. So this basically happened to me. Then comes the huge turning point at the age of 21, where Saturn is at its third quarter square. And it's important to know in this chart that Neptune is at the top of the chart and Jupiter is in my 12th house, where during this time, I received knowledge of spirituality and astrology came to my life. I dropped out from, the University College of London, two big universities from the UK. But at the same time, I was suffering a lot of psychosis, depression, panic attack, a lot of mental health disorder that I didn't know what to do with. So this was a time of huge polarization from a city boy, from someone who is always listening to someone else. I became this rebellious kid. I started traveling all around the world to seek for answers, to seek for healing. And that's how I met Maurice, went to Peru, did ayahuasca, went to find the white lions in South Africa. I was basically getting out of my comfort zone and really rewriting my narrative of what life is supposed to be. Then I finished all my journey and I came back. I was forced back here to Malaysia, and this was when my Saturn return happened. As you can see, there's a stellium of Capricorn planets. It's accountability time. It's, what have you learned being away so long outside of your house? And it's in the 8th house. And this time I felt completely disempowered. My skin broke out again. I learned so much healing modalities, meditated with masters, but how come I wasn't healing? During this time, I called for divine intervention, and it was a time where it was COVID-19 as well. The lockdown happened. Everyone was going crazy. So I lost all connection to my mentors and teachers and finally turned within to seek counsel with my inner teacher, right? So here's where I empty all my cup and I finally ask for deep insights, and the universe, the deep consciousness inside of me told me to forgive myself, to renounce my self-righteousness so that I could see clearly again. And truly, when I listen to my intuition and make choices for myself, I forgave myself. And my parents at that time had difficult conversations. And what happened is that I experienced this miraculous healing. It led me to places. It led me to become this spiritual health practitioner. And I had this opportunity to go on TEDx and share this with my local community, truly honoring the title of the book, Coming Home. So this is the special giveaway for today. And all of these stories and packed up insights and wisdom are living inside this book. And my hope for you and takeaway in this session is to know that no matter how bad things can go, when we truly lean in and move towards our pain and suffering, that is when we can transform our limitation into our greatest blessings and opportunities. And that's all for my sharing for today. I thank you so much for listening. And I hope I am able to inspire you just a little bit to learn more about astrology, and most importantly, to learn more about yourself. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you, CHIRON from Malaysia. CHIRON is a very brave soul and has inspired many, many people. His astrology is on point, as you can hear in his talk, but he brings it holistically as a coach in his life. So let's select a recipient for his gift, this very special book. And the number will be 195. Lucia Bush. And then 27 with Arabella von Arx. And here we are with Maurice Fernandez. Thank you all for joining this session. And as we speak about the equinox, the astrology year, and as we are transitioning into new times, which I'm going to reflect upon, I really wanted to celebrate the sun today in many ways. The sun at night when we don't see it, and the sun in its full glory, maybe the summer solstice or the spring equinox, whether you're south or north of the hemispheres, there's something about the sun that really pumps life into us. Even if we sometimes, not sometimes, but every day we retreat into the darkness, necessarily so, there is something about the sun that comes back. And if we look at the fire qualities of the sun, we are starting with Aries, with the ignition of our consciousness. Every morning, when we wake up from sleep, we transition from Pisces to Aries. From a time of surrender, of being in the unconscious realms, to opening our eyes, seeing the light usually, and standing up, showing up for our own lives. Sometimes we stay in bed longer. Sometimes we wish we can stay in bed. But there is something about the sun that represents not only the hope for a new day, for a new start, for another opportunity, for a blank slate, but it also represents the motivation to be here. And this is why we often associate the sun, Leo, the fifth house, with love. In a superficial way, it's the romantic stuff. But in a deeper essence, the sun represents the love for life. And despite all difficulties, despite the fact that we are struggling through suffering, whether it's our own or whether we see the wages of war and the martyrdom that happens in the natural world, that happens through our news channels, the sun makes us motivated to stand up every morning, to show up for our own existence, for our own life. So the sun is often represented by the Leonian presence, the sign of Leo, the wolves howling at the moon, and the flaming mane of the lion representing the solar logos. It's interesting that astrologically, lions are positioned in opposite to humans. The Aquarian archetype represents the higher mind, the higher intelligence that human possesses as beings who are two-legged, standing vertical. The brain is our tallest organ, and it's represented by Uranus, whereas the sun and Leo is representing the heart. These extreme polarities, but most important organs, the heart and the brain, working together. And basically why, in this constellation, why are humans paired with lions? Because we are the apex predators, which also means the custodians of existence. So in some ways, the sun and humans are representing the responsibility of leadership in this world. And so this slide is showing how our responsibility can fall short if we don't show up, if the stage remains empty. Now, we all see the superficial association with Leo and with the sun, that they like praise, that they like to receive attention, and we often reduce it to something really shallow, when in fact taking the stage represents courage, represents the stage of life, showing up again for our own existence. Which also means, if we speak about astrology, how we need to show up for astrology. We're celebrating today Astrology Day. And part of this celebration is not just coming together and having some good times together, but it is also about not taking astrology for granted, making sure that we are showing up, making sure that we put our money in the things that are important to us, that we're investing energy, thought, creativity, material goods to give life, to establish, to solidify astrology. And so we are powering the life of astrology. And, if none of us would do anything about it, if we would forget about astrology, the stars would still work and influence us, and we would still be under the influence of transits, but we wouldn't have the interpretation. We would be at the mercy of fate. We would basically be puppets and not exercise the agency of our free will, which implies that we are co-creators, that we are conscious beings and not only passive, passively drifting with the flow. And on this note, I would like to honor today a very important astrologer who is a massive Leo. And that's Alan Leo. And he chose his name because he was a Leo and he was an astrologer. So he lived in England at the turn of the 20th century, at the time when astrology had fallen out of favor because of the Age of Enlightenment, which was favoring, the mind and the physic. And astrology was frowned upon for being a superstition, for being, inconsistent, and not, because scientists couldn't figure out how it works. So it basically was reduced to fortune telling, and lost its credibility in universities and honorable studies. And Alan was living in England at the time, being a salesperson, a good Jupiter sun, going around selling his products. But he started a magazine called Modern Astrology, where he would write his columns, and he would basically spend a lot of time revitalizing astrology, pumping life, pumping power back into it. And it took off. He gave that magazine life, and his practice picked up. and he started to write books and became this well-established astrologer, who, was very inspired by the Theosophical Society. And part of what was really important in the Theosophical movement was that they imported back into astrology the concept of reincarnation, the concept of soul journey. And so something happened to Alan Leo in the height of his practice, is that he was prosecuted / persecuted, and basically was prosecuted for fortune telling, which was forbidden at the time. So he went to trial in 1914, and I believe they tossed the case. And then again in 1917, they filed another motion against him, and he had to pay a fine, which is equivalent to $3,000 today. It's not extravagant, but it was extremely stressful. And he had to fight to basically honor astrology in the court of law. And part of this experience between the 1914 and 1917 is that he wanted to raise awareness about the fact that astrology was not fortune telling, that it was not only about predictions, but it was a process-oriented practice that had a lot to do with character analysis, personal development, self-awareness, and not only dry predictions. Not that predictions are not a good part of astrology, but there's more to it. And so he invested a lot of energy into this. And unfortunately, after the second trial in 1917, he ended up dying from the stress after the trial was over. He passed away in the summer, late summer of 1917 from a stroke, I believe. And so today, on this day, on this solar equinox day, I would like to honor him. And it's interesting that his Neptune is right at 29 Pisces on the cusp of the equinoctial degree. And it is where it is today. So he has a Neptune return, and Pluto's on his north node. So hello, Alan. We thank you for your hard work and for keeping the flame burning. Equinoxes, solstices, eclipses, birthdays, solar arcs, planets meeting the sun. The sun is centralizing everything. And I always encourage people to really celebrate their birthdays, because you have to honor yourself for having made it another year, for having kept your own flame burning, for waking up every morning and showing up for your own life, for your own people, for your own calling. Don't take it for granted. Don't think you are insignificant. Celebration, just like we're doing here for astrology, is critical in order to power our lives and power what is important to us. What I would also recommend, every day the sun moves 1 degree. So when you look at, March 20th, 19th to 20th, depending on whether it's a leap year or not, the sun is always going to be 0 Aries. And then on the 21st, it's 1 Aries. And on the 22nd, it's 2 Aries, and so forth. And so every year, the sun returns to the same degree. So you can create a diary and see each day of the calendar, because it's a solar calendar, it's a solar degree. So if, you know, you have your moon at 5 degrees Cancer, every year on June 26, you're going to have a sun to moon conjunction. And so pay attention every year what happens on June 26. Is it a favorable day of the year for you? Because the sun is powering your moon on that day. And then when is it on your angle? Which day of the calendar is the sun on your ascendant, the sun on your IC, descendant, MC? These are going to be important calendar days that repeat every year. So if you notice, you know, in your life, certain things happen on certain days. Some days are more significant than others for you, or some period of time, because let's say, you know, you're a mid-Taurus rising, and the sun is going to be in your first house in the early month of May, and you know, it's the time where you feel that you're the most motivated to do things. So that's an interesting exercise. For example, you know, looking now at some news events, I looked at a disappearing sun, Kate Middleton, who had surgery early in the course of January and hasn't been seen yet. And she released some photos that were doctored, and there's tons of conspiracies of whether she's alive or dead, or whether she's kept in a cage somewhere. So it's interesting to track the sun with these events. The last appearance on Christmas Day, the sun was at 3 degrees Capricorn in her 5th house, which is about showing up. It's the house of your sense of destiny, of manifestation. And so the sun was there, and she, in a Capricornian way, she's born Capricorn, she did her duty of, you know, doing the Christmas celebration. And then on January 26th is when the surgery was. And that surgery that became such a big thing happened when the sun was in her 6th house. Not only that, it was squaring her Pluto exactly. And it was conjunct Pluto, by the way. I didn't put it here. But just the solar degree, January 16, is square her Pluto. So for Kate, every January 16 is a Sun-Pluto event. And for her, it's not just a surgery, but it's the beginning of this very Plutonian, Neptunian conspiracy unfolding. And hopefully she's fine. But maybe that Sun Pluto is covering up for something. She was discharged from the hospital when the sun was at 8 Aquarius. The dates are not correct here. I have to rectify. It was early, it was January 29, not February 29. And so the sun was just on her Venus. So she got the clearance to get out of the hospital when the sun is in her 6th house on her Venus. But it's a Venus retrograde. So maybe there was some unfinished business, even though she was clear to go. Then from that time through the sun in her 7th house, she's not showing up, and her husband is appearing in all kinds of public events on his own, you know, raising the speculation that she's not well. So the 7th house, the focus is on her husband. The sun is powering her husband. And then on March 3rd, as the sun is just on the cusp of her 8th house, and these are Koch house systems, she's photographed for the first time and makes this flash appearance that is a little nebulous. It's not clear what is really going on, but she is seen with her mother somewhere. Then as the sun progresses into Pisces, into her 8th house, the conspiracy becomes ever more outlandish and mysterious, and those hidden behind the scene issues when she releases a photo of Mother's Day and apparently it's a fake photo. So much deception, so much veiled truth with the sun in Pisces in her 8th house. And so it's a disappearing sun. We talk about how the sun is powering your life and showing up, and Alan Leo took the stage. And here we see someone who's overwhelmed, who needs to retreat. So it's the opposite of that visibility. It's the art of invisibility, which is very much Piscean. What will happen now that the sun is in the 8th house? Excuse me, in Aries. So it's back to action and fire and visibility, and then powering through her 9th house. Likely she will come back to the public eye. However, notice that it will oppose her Mars, oppose her Saturn, oppose her Pluto. So even though, she's going to probably show signs of life, there will be still a lot of confrontations and questions and controversies around all of this, probably until the sun will reach the degree of her MC. Then it is visible. The eclipse is also going to be opposing her Saturn, and it's going to square her own lunar eclipse. So I just wanted to show how powerful the sun is, whether it's a visible sun or it's the need to retreat from visibility. And why, if we speak about the sun, we have to speak about lions. We're turning now from Pisces age to the Aquarius Leo age. Some of you have seen my videos. I talk about this with Rick Levine recently on my YouTube channel. And Shannon mentioned it, how we're overlapping. The Pisces age is fading as the Aquarius Leo age is rising. So we look at them as an axis. Jesus was the fisherman and his mother was the virgin. So Virgo Pisces, and he started the Pisces age, or at least the overlap. Now we are rising into this polarity of Aquarius and Leo, and it is a solar age. It is the age where we now become the leaders, where humanity is going to attain its height, its higher self, its solar consciousness. And the symbol of the lion, the flaming mane of the sun, is within our heart and within our consciousness. So we know that the risk involved with the Aquarius age is about the misuse of power, the misuse of technology, the dark side of, the Frankenstein archetype. But in a deepest level, connecting with our sun, this is the time when Shannon was saying, we need to show up. We need to incarnate. We need to not run away, not escape anymore, but step into our leadership. Honor the lion within. And so this is a conference that I want to plug in because it's probably one of the most important program that I've presented in recent years. You recognize AMIR and the lion, Rick Levine, and the keeper of the white lions, Linda Tucker. And the reason this conference is so important, and I'm really encouraging everyone to show up, is because we are talking about these larger cycles, and because it is a solar event where we are celebrating through art, through knowledge, through community, in retreat, in nature, to activate. So there is going to be a ceremonial activation of this solar consciousness. So check it out on my website or on the Omega website, Omega Institute, upstate New York. And if I encourage you to do a ritual now that we are in an eclipse time, eclipse season, that we are on the equinox. Find the right day and look maybe during this Aries season, when is the sun most powered in your own chart? To wake up at dawn, you can also do that at dusk and gaze at the sun. Do a sun gazing ritual where the light of the sun is not dangerous to your eyesight. And you say this mantra, Ong So Hung, which basically connects you with yourself and with your higher self and with the creator. Wear your solar colors, drink carrot, cayenne, ginger juice to activate the solar energy inside and out, and make especially important, the sun has to do with respect, has to do with gratitude, and has to do with Christ consciousness. It has to do with being the son or the daughter of the sun. So it is about really empowering yourself into your own destiny. You can plant something. You can adopt a cat. Anything that you feel is going to be meaningful to power your life through this intention. So thank you again. And as I'm honoring the sun today, I would also like to honor Neptune, which is an archetype that I have researched very thoroughly. And I'm offering today a gift of a whole 30-hour workshop on the 12th house and Neptune and the Piscean energy, which is, I think, fascinating. And so I will select number 1, Hazy Lidal, as the winner of this workshop. And number 325, Nofar Sheffer, as the runner-up. Blessings again. And thank you. And we see that Petra is here.
Against all the odds, I have made it.
Thank you, Petra. So I'm passing the mic to you.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Really glad to be here. Am I going? It's not. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you on this day that we're celebrating the sun about the moon. So gardening by the moon is something I'm obviously an astrologer, but I'm also a gardener. And the linking of the two is actually pretty wonderful. So the basic theory is this, in gardening, like anything else you're doing in life, all of the elements are present and you're working with all of these different conditions and you're trying to maximize the alignment of each individual element in a way that it's going to facilitate what your goal is. And in this case, I mean, there's different things to do in gardening, but germinating things by seed is really kind of the center of this technique. So, and these techniques, you know, there's a few different things going on here. They come out of common sense and millennia of observations by plant folk about what works, what doesn't work. And so if we're looking at the element of water, we know that seeds and soil contain water. And in essence, they contain like tiny oceans. There's a tiny ocean, there's big oceans, there's smaller bodies of water, and then down to this really small level, there's these little oceans that are inside of the soil and the seeds. And so what we're trying to do is use the moon to affect these tiny tides. So the moon is, you know, if the moon is creating a high tide pull, then it's pulling that water no matter what you're doing. And the word for a seed uptaking water is imbibition. So this is what we're trying to do. We're being strategic about when we are planting our seeds to maximize the imbibition. So if you're using the waxing moon, in general, like the basic is this. When the moon is waxing, there's a pull on the water. The water is growing. When the moon is waning, there is an ebb of the water. The water is dropping. So if you're going to just go by the moon, you're going to, from the new moon all the way to the full moon, you have an entire 2 weeks where you can plant seeds and know that you're going to have the wind in your sail. You're trying to create the maximum ideal conditions. So within that, there are moons, the sign being in the moon being in a certain sign that's going to improve your conditions even more. The very, very best is the moon in Cancer while it's waxing. Your little tiny oceans are super receptive at that point. You know, second would be Taurus. So a waning moon, you're going to be using that more if you're planting bulbs or you're cultivating or you're banishing pests. The exalted Taurus moon and the Cancer moon being the best. And then during the waxing moon, what you're doing, so above ground leafy growth. So, you know, right now as a gardener, I'm looking at my seeds and I'm like, okay, I want to be growing collards, I want to be growing lettuce, I want to be growing, you know, flowers. This is all going to be taking place in this waxing. So, you know, we're about to complete a waxing moon with the full moon this weekend. Yesterday and the couple days before, we had a Cancer moon. So we had the ideal conditions for starting. We won't have those again immediately, but, you know, just to kind of exemplify that we did just have perfect conditions. And then if you're going to be using a waning moon, you're going to be planting bulbs, biennials, which means it takes 2 years for the flowering cycle to happen, and perennial flowers. And then any vegetables that are going to be growing below ground. So your onions, your carrots, your beets, your potatoes. Beyond that, things that you can do in the different moons, if it's an Aries, Leo, or a Sag moon, the fire moons, this is when you're going to be pruning. And this could be a waxing moon or a waning moon. The fire sign moons are considered to be barren relative to the earth and to the water. And so, you know, if there's tons of different tasks to do in the garden, we are using astrology just the same way that we do with the rest of our lives, which is what is the very best conditions. So if you need to harvest, if you want to weed, or you want to destroy pests, you're going to use the same fire sign moons, but you could also have the air moons of Gemini and Aquarius. Libra moon is uniquely suited to starting flower seeds in a waxing moon. So even though the air signs are put with the fire signs for this kind of banishing energy, Libra, Venus ruled Libra is different. You'll repair or build infrastructure during a Capricorn moon. You know, it's pretty common sense. And you'll plant, transplant, or graft during a Cancer moon, a Scorpio moon, a Pisces moon, or a Taurus moon. So again, if you have to prioritize or simplify, then just, is it a waxing or a waning moon? You know, as a gardener, I can tell you that being, you know, what do you have in front of you to do? It's like, okay, I have a ton of seeds to start. I did get some started during the Cancer moon. I have a whole bunch more. So I'm now going to wait for 2 weeks. I'm not going to start any in the waning moon period. I'm going to wait till we come all the way around, even though it's tempting because it's springtime now. yeah, that's basically it. So try it. And if you have any questions, you who are listening, you could always email me and I'm happy to talk to you about that.
This is so appropriate as we are entering this new season of life in the Northern Hemisphere. I know you've done a lot of work with planting, and you're writing in the Mountain Astrologer about plants and planting as well. Would you like to introduce some of your work and what you offer?
Well, I am a consulting astrologer, so I offer natal synastry, astrocartography, family constellations. I do horary. And, you know, what I'm offering here is I also do, if somebody has a select question, there's something that they're focused on, a focus question, you know, I can answer questions in that way too. I work for the Mountain Astrologer. I did a series of articles about astrology and gardening called Plant Planet. And now I am writing for their digital side.
So this is your website.
This is my website.
Mentorship program as well?
Yep, a mentorship program is underway. It's a 6-month mentorship. And then also Wheel of the Year, which starts this weekend, which goes through the entire year looking at each archetype. You know, there's an herbal component and there's a magical component. And this is the 4th year of running this course. Beautiful.
And you are offering focused question reading.
Yes.
So can you pick a number between 1 and 325?
323.
323. Yvonne Gibson is going to be the first, the one to win it. But if she doesn't show up, we need a runner-up.
18.
Anja Bjorlo. Thank you so much, Petra.
My pleasure. Thank you, Maurice.
And I hope everything's good as far as the unexpected events.
Well, this is the day where the sun opposes my Pluto, so it was just a little moment.
But here we are. We showed up,
Yeah.
prevailed.
Yes, due to the force of cardinal fire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Presenters, those who registered, those who are with us today. And, you know, a simple word, it's a long session. We're 3 hours on, but I want to thank you for astrology. And I want to thank astrology, all our, the giants that we're standing on their shoulders, and the future generations, those who are learning from us. Gratitude for this amazing gift, a gift from the gods. Let's take good care of astrology.